All right, so coming into this game, it is our Wii Excadrill versus the arguably more terrifying Dragon-type tag team, which dominates Expanded, Garchomp and Giratina Tag Team GX. Now, TINACHOMP, as it's affectionately known, is arguably more threatening than ADP in some circumstances because while ADP has the ability to take extra prizes on you, TINACHOMP has the ability to blow up pretty much whatever is in front of it as fast as the opponent's first turn, especially if they get to go second. But thankfully, or not, depending on how you look at things here, my opponent is forced to go first, so they're going to have to focus more on just establishing their board as opposed to punching holes in my team right away. They do pretty well. It's not ideal to have the propagation execute down because you want to have that in hand so you can discard it, but hey, at the end of the day, they were able to pivot out, get their double dragon energy and their big tag team in play. They even get the backup Naganadel and Guzzlord, which can always be used to stall a game out thanks to its ability to heal, or its ability to take 2 prizes if my opponent is able to get enough of a lead and of course have the necessary energy in play. Now, for my part, what I'm trying to do is establish a board of at least 2 Drilbur and 2 Blitzle, because this ensures I always have the follow-up Pokemon to evolve into, and hopefully I will get to the point where I have 2 Zebstrikas set up as well, so I can start using Sprint and burning through my deck. Now, I actually made a bit of a misplay there. I had the chance to go for a Rototiller or a Mud Slap just for some chip damage, but I was admittedly a little bit nervous. So, I missed out on that, unfortunately. Would have been nice to maybe get a card back from the discard pile, but hey. My opponent is forced to actually attach the second Double Dragon energy to their TINACHOMP, which is actually really good for me because now they have essentially half of their critical energy supply committed. So if I can take out that TINACHOMP, they'll have access to maybe 2 DDEs left in the deck, assuming, of course, that they don't have special charge or anything like that, or if one of the DDEs is prized, well, then they're down to just 1 energy. Dragon types, they're very hungry. They have those awkward energy costs. So if I can basically take out this TINACHOMP here, I can probably swing the momentum of the game in my favor, especially since I am on the back foot already. That really needs to be my priority here. Now, seeing the Life Dew off of my draw supporter was actually really nice, as is seeing the Excadrill finally off of my first sprint. So basically this means that unless it gets Peel Lowered off, the Life Dew is going to save me from giving my opponent an additional prize. And that's going to matter a little bit because at this point in the game, I only have the ability to 3-hit KO a TINACHOMP, which is not great because, if I essentially have to give them 3 prizes in order to take 3 of my own, they're down to 2, and outside of getting to 11th hour tackle really quickly, well, there's not too much I'll be able to do to them. All right, they might just outpace me and take the game, especially because they have the ability with both of their main attackers to OHKO me no matter what. I don't play buff padding or anything like that. And, again, with Calamitous Slash and access to Galarian Zigzagoon things, they're going to make short work of whatever I put down on the board. But the nice thing is at least that I am going to force them to go through 6 prizes, or at least 4, and then force them to go for the Naganadel and Guzzlord's GX attack at the end, assuming they can find the energy. So they take the knockout, they do not take a prize, thankfully, and I am down to 1 Drilbur. But thankfully, I've got my 2 Zebstrika in play, and a nice fat Cynthia is going to help me set up a little bit better. And in fact, seeing that Diancie is really, really helpful because A, I don't want to discard it and send it to the Lost Zone with Excadrill's attack, and B, I do need that extra bit of damage just to make KOing the enemy tag teams a little bit easier. And I'm even able to establish a couple of more Drilbur on the bench as well, just to make sure that I have some pretty easy access to follow up Excadrills, assuming I draw into everything I need. I also go for the Palpad there just to get back a couple of Rhyhorns, knowing that my Pokemon are getting knocked out pretty quickly. So Rhyhorn will allow me to maybe, fetch the follow-up Excadrill I need, fetch an Ordinary Rod, and of course get the additional energy into play out of the discard pile, where you're usually going to be because, hey, you're milling through your deck. An Ordinary Rod, of course, it's really nice because I can recover a full Excadrill line and get back just enough energy to ensure that I draw into them. Not this turn, unfortunately, but in general, I can draw into them. but I leave enough in the discard as well that Raihan will still be live. And actually whiffing the attack here did kind of suck, but again, the life dew kind of helps make up for it because essentially it forces my opponent to take an additional prize in order to win here. And they actually don't see much action on their side. They've already filled up their bench, so there's no Dedenne or Tapu Lele to see any additional cards. And there's no point to evacuate the TINACHOMP at this point in the game. So, they're forced to just go for the attack, make short work of an Excadrill, and put themselves down to 4 prizes. But, thanks to the end, I can at least keep their hand size relatively contained and still see a full 6 cards for myself, which is excellent. And I do see the Ordinary Rod, so again, I can at least recover the Excadrill line that was just taken out and get a bit more energy back into the deck. At this point, I actually don't care about Raihan because I don't have access to it anymore this turn, and I need to draw into it. I can't afford to continuously whiff like this, and thankfully it actually works out. And I even see the Martial Arts Dojo off of here, which means that Drilbur now does enough with Diancie to take a clean KO. So all of a sudden, I am halfway to winning, and my opponent is going to have to produce an additional Double Dragon Energy and a Tapu Koko Prism Star if they want to get rolling again. Now, I am still in quite a bit of danger because they do have the room now to put down the Tapu Koko Prism Star. They do have some Lightning Energy in the discard pile already. So if they wanted to, they could charge up the Naganadel and Guzzlord, make very short work of my Excadrills, and if they have access to another Propagation Execute, they can discard that continuously to heal off 60 damage and force me essentially to miss the KO, right? And once they get down to 2 prizes with Naganadel and Guzzlord in play, they can just use the GX attack to essentially win the game automatically. So what I'm going to do actually is look for a different route to victory. Knowing that it might be too hard to go through an additional tag team, I decide instead to gust up the Crobat V and just make short work of that, just in case, I'm able to see an additional boss's orders or maybe use a Fion later in the game. That might allow me to force up something very frail like an Execute or one of the Galarian Zigzagoons in order to take a very easy prize for the game. And my opponent is in a tough spot right now. I'm down to 1 prize. They've still got 2 essentially to take, but finding that energy is a lot more difficult now because I took 2 off of their board, and unless they have access to the remaining 2 in the deck, there's not much they're going to be able to do. Linear attack is great and all that, but doing 40 damage to my bench Pokemon every turn, it's not really advancing their game state too much. And in fact, because now they are essentially whiffing their energies pretty hard, I'm able to establish 2 backup Excadrills in addition to the one that I have in play, and I can even take things a bit more casually now, go for the 11th hour tackle, even though my deck is nowhere near small enough to get the big damage buff off of that. I know at this point, once I do get a few more cards out of there, I'll be very easily 2-hit KOing this thing anyways. So, just punching in there a little bit and not milling too many cards seemed more ideal at the time. And they do get the big N off, actually, setting me down to 1, but, never punished. I get the Cynthia, which means I do have a little bit of follow-up next turn if I want. And they are actually able to kind of cheat out a prize here, using the Galarian Zigzagoon in order to go for that, but they don't go for the linear attack. I guess, they were getting a little stressed out too. They didn't realize maybe that they still had access to it at that time. So, hey, you know what? Fine by me. So I just popped the sprint. At this point now, I have access to a very, very thin deck. So I get the nice 150 damage buff on 11th hour tackle, plus 20 from Diancie, which means I'm doing a clean 200 damage. And now at this point, the TINACHOMP is so severely damaged that, even if I was to shuffle back most of my cards into my deck, I could still take them out with the 11th hour tackle, which is nice. If I really had to, I could probably take them out with one of the Drilburs, the one that, that has access to the 20 damage attack. So what my opponent should maybe have done is, if they had access to an AZ, for example, scoop that up and just throw up the Naganadel and Guzzlord, hoping that I've milled all of my Gusts, which I believe I had by that point in the game. But, hey, they see the additional DDE, I guess they just want to go out fighting, and they're able to make pretty short work of my Excadrill. And really, I have game here, and in fact, I'm kind of BMing a little bit, accidentally, of course. I was thinking I had one more prize to take for whatever reason. So I was just trying to make sure I had the backup Excadrill and Drilbur ready to go. But, you know, I realized pretty quickly, oh yeah, I can just go for the big 11th hour tackle and clean this thing up for game. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you slay one of the Titans of Expanded with a very edgy mole. And you know, honestly, it just came down to how much damage this particular one prizer could do for just one energy, allowing me to offset some admittedly dodgy play. The deck itself is pretty simple, and unlike a lot of expanded lists, you do want to play higher counts of everything because, well, Excadrill mills your deck in exchange for its high damage output. So you don't want to find out that you milled both of your boss's orders in the last attack, so keeping a high count and playing a lot of recursion makes sure that you keep this well-oiled machine running well enough. Now, the other thing to say is that this deck certainly forces you to play extremely aggressively, but it's also really good at putting your opponent on a timer. Since you trade so well against multi-prizers and can actually edge out one prize decks as well, thanks to a generous sprinkling of damage modifiers, you're going to be setting the pace in almost every game. And one way or another, any game you play with Excadrill is going to be over quickly. And hey, you know, speaking of keeping things brief, we will wrap it up there for today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like, leave a comment below, and subscribe if you haven't already to catch whatever the next wacky expanded concoction is going to be. And as for me, I will catch you all next time, and until then, take it easy.